We've got a special anniversary issue of Batman Detective Comics, number 102. Wait a minute. We just had one of these, right? We had... Didn't we just have a Detective Comics? Hey, let's talk about this issue. Hey everybody, this is Perch. We've got Batman Detective Comics number 1027. This is the 1000th appearance of Batman, which they didn't, really specify that little nuance back when they did the $10 Detective Comics 1000. But hey, DC has clearly established that these anniversary issues sell well. They do great for them, so we're going to keep doing them. The challenge that they have is that now that they've done them, it's like, we've got to figure out another way to do the anniversary. So I was thinking about this. They've done the main characters. They've done the villains. I think they've got to start going deeper around like how many years the annuals have been going on, how many years since there was has it been 50 issues since there was a Batman? There's more they can do. They've got to dig deep. And this is a 145-page mega spectacular. It's not just a spectacular, it's a mega spectacular, which means that shit's getting real here. They're serious. Anyway, we've got a bunch of stories here. And I think as you look at what's coming, it's actually pretty interesting because it really defines, I think, the DC of the future in a lot of ways. So we've got Pete Tomasi doing a story with Brad Walker on pencils. That should be a nice little story. That's how it's leading off. So that should be pretty good. Fits, of course, with Detective Comics. We've got a James Tynion story and Riley Rossmo called Ghost Story, and that should also be good. Those two are really kind of defining the Batman universe at the moment. But it's these other names that are kind of interesting. First, we get a combination of kind of what I would call old school. We got a Marv Wolfman story with Manuel Lapuccino, yes, and Bill Sienkiewicz doing inks. Kind of interesting back and forth there. I'm interested to see Wolfman and Sienkiewicz together. That will be an interesting story. And we also get a Grant Morrison, Chris Burnham story, which again, very much Grant Morrison had his piece of that legacy. So the two of those together are what I would call the big ones, the kind of the nod to the past. And then I think the other one is the aptly named Legacy, which is Tom King and Walter Simonson. I'm very excited to see Walter Simonson. Less excited about seeing Tom King, but it is what it is. So that's probably the other one that is a nod to the past. So then we get into, I think, what is the DC of the future in a lot of cases. First off, we have Generations Fractured, which is Dan Jurgens, a writer-artist, and he is working with Kevin Nolan doing kind of the finishes for the art. It's going to be an interesting combo. I think Jurgens and Nolan, I believe they've done work before, but I like the way that comes about, and that's going to be an interesting piece. This story, though, was initially intended as part of the Generations kind of mini series, what was leading into the thing that got everybody nervous, 5G, that now is being reprinted here. So I'll bet we see more of these Generation stories kind of pop up in these different places because some work was done, so it makes sense to have it there. And then rounding out the kind of, along with Wolfman and Morrison and King, we've got Scott Snyder and Ivan Rice, as always. This is most likely a pretty short bit. We don't get a page count on any of this stuff, but I'm guessing this is a pretty short story here. Snyder has spent so much time with Batman and in DC that it's kind of it's interesting to see him paired with Ivan Rice. And I think there's a little bit, maybe a clue there. I may be wrong. Around some future team-ups of some work. I suspect this may be a dance partner we see come with Snyder again in the future, but maybe not. It just is. I have a little hunch. But then I think we get to see a little bit of the future. So first off, we get the second story. Pete Tomasi, who's working on this book right now, Detective Comics. We get the second story, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it is there. It's Mr. Brian Michael Bendis teaming up with his Miles Morales artist, David Marquez. And it's the first time they're doing DC work, and they're hyping it. Like the two of them are really hyping the fact that this is their first DC work together, which indicates to me that there is more DC work together coming. We've heard that there's something for Jinx World that they're doing and everything else, but I suspect this is a bigger clue of a team we're going to see in the near future. And and kind of how this all works. And then we get Matt Fraction, who just wrapped up the Jimmy Olsen. Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky are doing, the Sex Criminals team is doing Mini Happy Returns. This is a team obviously that likes working together. Chip Zdarsky, whose work at Marvel has diminished, and I say by that, I mean he's putting out an incredible Daredevil comic right now, but the Chip Zdarsky of the future, I think, is you're seeing a lot of people kind of get elevated in different areas as Marvel kind of defines its niche, and you don't see a lot of places for Zdarsky. And I'm hoping that's not the case. He can continue to work for both companies. I don't think it has to be one or the other. Obviously, his writing has really kind of taken off a lot of what he's done. Did the X-Men Fantastic Four, is doing Daredevil, like I mentioned. But it's going to be interesting to see what he does here, especially back teaming again with Matt Fraction, having them just wrapped up Sex Criminals, or about to, I guess. But I think definitely we're seeing a Matt Fraction part of the future. And then we got Greg Rucka, who's another part of, I don't want to say the club, but he's definitely part in that. Brian Michael Bendis, Matt Fraction, Greg Rucka is doing a story, and Kelly Sue DeConnick is doing a story. Kelly Sue DeConnick teaming up with John Romita Jr., Klaus Johnson. It's a classic team. And then finally, we have Mariko Tamaki, who's the writer on Wonder Woman. She's teamed up with Dan Mora. So taking a step back, and then somebody who's missing from here is Brian Edward Hill, who absolutely deserved to have a story in this book because he did a pretty awesome Detective Comics run, and I think the Outsiders book, which just went away, he belongs here, certainly more than some of the other names on here. But so I think when looking at this issue and what we're in for, we get a couple of the current people. That's the Tinian and Tomasi. We get a couple of nods to kind of some of the big moments in the past. That's Wolfman, Morrison, King, and Snyder. We get this Generations book kind of shoved in there. That's Jurgens. And then I see we have 4 stories, basically the Bendis, Fraction, Rucka, DeConnick, and Tamaki, 5, I guess, stories that, to me, I think we're looking at DC in 2021 and kind of beyond. We're looking at this is an interesting collection, a stable of the writers, and I think the creative direction that the company is going. Kind of all on one page. It's just interesting to take a step back and look at it this way. But we'll see this issue. First off, are you excited? It's a mega spectacular. You need to be mega. It's not just regular excited. You should be mega excited that you're getting this comic. Hopefully you are mega excited, and it will definitely carry with it a mega price tag. But these issues have been, reasonably pretty good. They sell well. People seem into them. The anthology bit is working for DC right now. It'll be interesting to see how this kind of defines the future, not just of Batman, but certainly of DC. Because like I said, it's an interesting pairing, and seeing a bunch of names who have been more or less out of the Batman universe now coming in to take basically half the stories. I mean, there's 11 stories in all. One is kind of a cheat. I think that Generations story is a little bit of a cheat in that it was scheduled for somewhere else and is being put in here. But if you think about it, we've got it's curious. I think we are seeing an indication of where things are going. You're kind of balanced. You got 5 writers that are the 6 writers, I guess, that are the legacy and the current, and then we got 5 stories by, in theory, the future. So interesting to see it all go down. But are you excited? Let me know in the comments below what you think of this comic, what you think of the creative team. Which story are you most interested in, excited in seeing? Leave a comment below. Hey, like, subscribe if you haven't done it already. Thank you very much. If you have, follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, emails, all those things. Most importantly, though, thanks for listening, and thanks for reading. Comics, not my video, but comics. Yeah, thanks for that.